and welcome to another episode of Entrepreneurship Uncovered: How to Rise Together, Elevate Your Entrepreneurship Game with the Power of Peer Groups. I'm Gabrielle Luma. I'm the CPA, CGMA, and CEO of Mod Ventures, and I'll be facilitating and joining in this discussion with Mary Collum, President of Vantage Strategic Consulting Inc., and aligned with Arizona Growth Advisors, in which she facilitates 5 peer groups. Yes, 5 peer groups, serving multiple C-suite executives. Before we start, let me tell you a little bit about Mod Ventures. Mod Ventures is not just another accounting company. We're fully virtual, we're an outsourced accounting and advisory firm, and we serve businesses across the United States since 2014. Our passion is to help entrepreneurs organize, create, and predict their financial futures. Strong small businesses and nonprofits create financially stable communities, and that's what we are all about. Thank you, Mary, so much for joining us today. We have some history. I've known
Yeah,
you for a little while now.
thank
And
you, Gabby.
so yeah, I'm so happy to bring you on and talk about all things peer groups. And so first, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to become a coach?
Absolutely. So I, as a fellow finance leader,
Yeah.
was in banking for 25 years. And after that amount of time, I decided to not take that any longer, take that road any longer, and chose to figure out a way to be an entrepreneur myself. I worked with hundreds, literally hundreds of businesses over that amount of time as a commercial bank leader and also running the private bank and wealth management for 2 different banks. So my background was always working with business owners, wealthy individuals who were business owners. And what I found was they were super humble, they were hungry, they were smart, they were lifelong learners. And over time, after networking and figuring out what I was going to do, it took me about a year to figure out what I really was going to do after I left the bank.
Right.
We decided that the model with Arizona Growth Advisors was attractive. It's in the mastermind category.
Mhm.
And so what we do is we serve CEOs and we help them align with their vision. And what's common is that other individuals on the leadership team also join Arizona Growth Advisors so they can all talk the same language and really keep alignment with the leadership teams.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so I mean, I can see the benefit because you are working with multiple C-suite um, groups. And so, having kind of alignment along, a certain way that you talk and you come to, the meetings and you're talking about the same exact things. And so I think it makes a lot of sense for multiple C-suite leaders to be in different peer groups. So what are the peer groups you are currently leading?
So I've got the 5, as you mentioned, and
Yeah.
this one just started like in April, and super excited about that one because it's a tech leader group.
Mhm.
And Rick and John freely admit that they tried years ago to put together one. They were part of the Tech Council, and they could never the realization or the optics around tech leaders has recently, probably in the last couple of years, changed
Mhm.
because of all the businesses using tech, leveraging technology to drive their business forward. So with automation and AI, those things, it became apparent. And well, actually, the fun thing about it was my original group, which started in 2017. One of the guys was a NetSuite expert and followed a path of consulting, and then he was actually second in command. Just so you know, he was in a second in command group.
Mhm.
He left. He went to a CPA firm. He worked with like 100 companies, helped them with NetSuite, and then came back and said, "Mary, I want to get back into a peer group." And initially, I said no. The only thing I can do is run my own house when it
Yeah.
comes to IT, and that's lucky.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's the internet service that helps with that. So All things said, we started talking about it more. He's like, "Don't worry about it. I can coach you. You're a great facilitator." La la la. And I serendipitously heard from one of my other groups that a tech leader was looking for a group, and so
Oh,
that turned into organic growth. And all of a sudden, we have a. It's small. It's smaller than I would like. Ideally, we'd like to have 10 in each group. Started out with 6, and hopefully, we'll grow from there.
yeah.
So in answer to your original question, that's the newest group, that's the tech group, but the CEO group you're in.
Yes. I'm in.
And so then we've got CEO, we've got second in command, and that there's a lot of presidents in that one. There's a CEO backstop, and then we've got CFO, and we've got a key leader. And
Mhm.
so those are key members on the leadership team, various titles: COO, CMO, director of creative, it's various.
Yeah.
Project
Yeah.
leader, yeah.
Right. But
But they're on
leadership.
a leadership team, so
Yeah.
that's the important part, so that they can all, like you said, talk about it together once they go back to their offices.
Yeah. I love that. Well, and particularly talking about the CTO, like the chief technology officers. I love that you're going where there's need, right? And I do agree. I think that after or during the pandemic, we saw the rise of even more like technology adoption has just like gone into overdrive because
Yes.
you're having to figure out how to remote in your whole workforce. That's one part of it. The other part of it is the automation and the process, um, tying up the systems and processes so that it's more fluid and more efficient. So I think that is, having a strategic leader in your firm or your company is super important going forward because that's what we're doing. Like that this is technology. We're in the age of technology now.
We certainly are. And yeah, it's been interesting. We all started out trying to figure out Zoom,
Yeah.
and here we are. A lot of times it's one a day for me. It's like a
Yeah.
vitamin,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
fine.
It,
And the great part about these peer groups is when the pandemic did hit, the attendance was 100% because everybody wanted to know what everybody else was doing,
yes. Yeah.
especially with technology, but also with, there were several essential businesses, and how were they handling issues, challenges that came about.
Right.
So it really became we actually, like I said, the attendance was great.
Mhm.
And then fast forward, I can think of a couple of companies who have seen the need because who doesn't have issues hiring people? I
Yeah.
mean, the labor force has changed,
Mhm.
and with that, you almost need to automate at least part of your processes in order to, like you said, stay efficient and stay profitable
Right.
and be able to drive business forward.
Right, right. So, I mean, you see a lot of businesses, a lot of business owners, a lot of, different leaders in, um, I mean, predominantly the Phoenix, Arizona area.
Right.
And so, um, I think the trends are showing that, with a tightened labor market, that we are having to look even more closely at all these different ways to, um, you know, deal with profit. That's number one. And really, yeah, like tighten things up as best as we can. So, and I think that it's all the positions, all the leadership positions are looking at how they can do it better. From marketing to accounting to um I mean even running meetings and things like that. I think we're all looking for.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we have best practice speakers, and we actually put together an education roadmap.
Mhm.
And it's thoughtful, meaning we're planned out for the next 18 months. And it's aligned with what used to be the scaling up system, but now it's 7 attributes of agile growth. And it's people, it's strategy, it's execution, it's cash, it's about your customer, the
Yep.
health of your leadership team, and then your systems and process. And so each month, part of the day is we bring in a local consultant and they talk for about an hour, hour and a half on that specific segment of the 7 attributes.
Mhm.
And I mean, you can attest to what I loved, that not only the systems one with AI, but also the last one about, it was about the customer and about profit, really, the revenue one
Yeah,
that
the
we just
revenue
had.
side. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has been really valuable for me because you kind of live in your bubble and you're trying to figure out a lot of different things. And
Mm-hmm.
as an entrepreneur and a CEO and someone who is like, a lot of times you don't have somebody else to bounce ideas off of.
Right.
Or you might have a leadership team, but you need to bring in new information, new, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? That sort of thing. So I love our CEO group because we have a wide variety, really, of
Dynamic.
yeah, of different types of businesses and also size of businesses. So if you're, let's say you're $1 million business and you want to know what a $5 million business is doing, there's that opportunity to work with other CEOs that are dealing with those scaling, issues, and you're learning. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that. You're alluding to the fact that it's lonely at the top.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. I mean, and you know, I I think that it's not as lonely if you really do reach out and if you're trying to run your business, well, that's the best thing for you is that it's not as lonely as if you reach out and you have a community to work with. And I think that that has been most beneficial for me. Um, I spent a lot of time in my own industry community, right? But
Yeah,
I've learned so much from other industries and how they manage their businesses that's completely different, which helps us differentiate ourselves.
that's right. Yeah, I think the magic really happens with that dynamic where you've got these other minds in the room who, I mean, first of all, you need to be open and vulnerable and ask for that help and
Yeah,
share what's going on.
yeah,
But then when that happens, then all of a sudden you've got all these other brains that are saying, hey, I've been there before. This is what I did, and right or wrong, and then you can either take that and shelve it or
right,
adopt and adapt it to how it works for your business.
right, right. Well, and I love how our group is really, really open. So, and I know we're looking for probably a few more members, but we have a great group.
Right.
Um, but the thing that I've really noticed about it is the vulnerability.
Mhm.
And nobody has a hard time saying, like, these are my struggles. I
Nope.
mean,
I
I have cried, what
I know.
and
And then
and
you got hugs after.
yeah, but that's the thing, is like it's hard, what we do on a day-to-day basis, but we can do it with the help of our community and we're not alone. So I just love that about the peer groups. And so um why don't you I'm always interested because you always do like an economic update.
Hmm.
And I love that about every meeting because then we get to hear kind of what is going on in the general, like what's happening in our world. So, can you give us any insight into what maybe you're seeing in the business world and what other trends that we might need to be paying attention to?
Well, your question is timely as I just attended an advisory board meeting for a bank last night, and it's CrossFirst Bank. And they are looking to have an advisory board with different industries on the board and people in different industries on the board. And that way they can get a feel with what's going on in the marketplace. And also they can not only help us, but we help them with growing the bank. And
Sure.
so last night we talked about how Arizona, primarily Arizona, contractors are super busy. Projects are being tabled. And so there are some wait and see. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. We'll see what happens after the election. The other thing that's going on is interest rates jump up. And
Yeah.
the CEO of this bank, he's actually a really cool guy. He painted a pretty clear picture. He said when the interest rates are rising up, then the bank stocks go down. When
Mm-hmm.
interest rates start to drop, he goes, I can just press a button and I can see the stock price go up. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, it's an inverse relationship right now, and we're all waiting for the interest rates to drop.
Right.
And what the Fed does is out of our control. We don't have that crystal ball. The
Right.
other thing that they talked about was the long-term growth of industries. There's there's some stress out there. The One of the restaurant groups, there's a large restaurant group as part of this, and they follow the credit card delinquencies, and they're saying that they're higher. And so that's a direct relationship, like a canary in the coal mine for them, leading indicator for what's happening in their business. And maybe they need to think about their strategy, right?
Okay.
The
And
other canary in the coal mines, leading indicators, there's the PMI, which is the manufacturing index.
mhm.
And example, semiconductor is really, really slow here in Arizona. And they are saying that we're at like the 4 or 5 year laptop chip replacement. So in the next couple of years, that should start to pick up. It's a cyclical industry.
Mhm.
On the construction side, some people follow the Architectural Billings Index, that's the ABI.
Gotcha.
And that one, both PMI and ABI right now are under 50. And what that means is a contraction in the market. That's a
Uh,
national figure. The architects still in Arizona are busy.
yeah.
And, you
Right
know,
here.
grateful for that. And yet there are other places outside. I think Denver's struggling a bit. So it's there's pockets. And so you just got to watch your own world wherever you're at.
Right.
The other, I guess, the other thing that's happening really is companies are realizing that culture eat strategy for lunch. You've heard
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
And that they need to invest in their employees. And so we are seeing a lot of talent development, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that has always been kind of a big deal in like our industries, like, because we always have to be, educating. CPAs have to have 40 hours of CPE every year. That's what we have
Right.
to do, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I think you're right in that our industry is definitely, um,
You need more CPAs, don't
yeah,
you?
we do. I just saw a statistic today that like there's like hundreds of thousands of CPAs that are retiring in the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that there's a huge gap in that finance world. And so we're, experiencing, I mean, I'm Gen X,
Mm-hmm.
but we're definitely experiencing a contraction in our, availability of staff. And so we're having to really go
Get
through,
creative.
yeah, yeah, extreme measures, in order to keep people, to educate them, to get them up to speed, um,
Mm-hmm.
like all kinds of things in order to, just keep going as a business in general. So, it's a tough business to be in. We're just getting out of tax season as well. And, tax preparation in the US is a difficult place to be. It's super
Mm-hmm.
hard to find talented staff who want to do this work. And so we have to find a better way to deliver the work. So
Yeah, I would think that some of it could be automated, but you still need that. I mean, I equate it to underwriting when I was in
Mhm.
banking days. You could automate it, score it, all those things, but you still need that person to go, okay, does this make sense?
Right. Absolutely. And so I think for tax preparation, it's one of those tough positions that and I say it's almost a thankless job because nobody really wants to, nobody really wants to have
It's
to
like
pay.
that necessary evil. Got to do
Yeah,
my taxes.
exactly. But and nobody really understands the industry and who is doing it and why they need to do it a certain way and all that sort of thing. So we have to do a lot more educating folks, but we
Yes.
really, really need to be working on our pipeline and filling it in so that we have more CPAs coming up and can do the work that we do. Um, and I think paraprofessionals, where in the law industry, where they have the paraprofessionals, they have the paralegals that come in and can do a good portion of document preparation. I think we're
Mhm.
going to need to see more of that within the um, CPA tax preparation, whatever world. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for non-licensed people to do that, but the CPA profession in general just has such a plethora of knowledge that they bring to the table that I
Right.
think, it's super hard to fill that gap. So anyway, it's a great profession. I love it, but we're gonna have to work harder on getting more people in. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I think it's interesting. And I imagine that every generation has its challenges, with business and with things that are happening in the world and the market and all those sorts of things. So it's interesting because I feel like we're seeing a whole new wave of new,
Oh, I know. I mean, there's now what, six generations in the workplace.
yeah.
And, the stereotype is the young ones, they don't have any motivation. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I think that it's individual. It's
Mhm.
how we've raised our kids on balance
Mhm.
has been very different, and that's probably on purpose. And yet, there's still some crazy smart minds out there.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a different way of treating. In fact, this was an interesting. I met this guy who works in Australia. He owns a company in Australia,
Mhm.
and he said, "You know what? We are responsible for the well-being of our employees, like literally, like almost legally responsible for that." And I thought, wow, that it's usually like, oh, well, there's a employee assistance program for you, so why don't you call them? And
Yes.
instead of having the owner take some extreme ownership and saying,
Right.
how can I help? What can we do?
Right. 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 It's funny that you mentioned that. I had an HR professional on last year, and they're talking about how there's a 24-hour time where, employers used to really just take responsibility for that 8 hours, right? But
Mhm.
there really is a whole nother 16 hours in the day, and we need to really make sure that an employee is able to fulfill their dreams and passions and, whatever, besides just a livelihood, like we want them to be able to um, have a great life. And
Absolutely. And if you
I
don't care about your employees, then maybe you shouldn't be the owner.
shouldn't do it. No, you shouldn't do it. And I think that's the thing is like there's so there's so much passion for people in small business too. I think there's a lot of passion to see people rise and um yeah, be all they can be to use a, military term. But seriously, and so
Yeah.
if you it goes back to culture. It really does. And
Yeah. And one of the things that I've seen is like we've got a company who has a cultural crew. So they actually have like a culture coach and then a culture crew that they plan things,
uh-huh,
fun events,
uh-huh,
games, little celebrate small wins, that type of thing. Keep
yeah,
keep the culture going, right?
right.
The other thing that I actually met a guy years ago, and he was a dream coach for a
Oh,
company. And I
wow.
thought that was so amazing it didn't matter what the employees for that organization had dreams of.
Right.
They talked about that was his intent was to find out what that dream is for everybody and then figure out ways to help them get there.
Wow. I think that's amazing. Well, I think Simon Sinek, doesn't he talk about this a lot, where he talks about how to help employees kind of realize their dreams, and it's not just Gary Vee talks about it too, I think. Um
Mhm.
in his I don't know if he would even say coaching, his social media maybe. So
His messaging, yes.
yeah. Yeah. So, but I mean, that's the bottom line. I think these days is that you're going to have to pay very close attention to your staff and how to support them, how to grow them. And that's where,
And invest in them.
yeah, you invest in them. And that's where you bring back the peer groups into this conversation. Really, it's about developing your team so that they are able to not only grow themselves, but grow the company. And it's a collaborative effort. No longer,
Absolutely.
it's not it's a very weird employee employer relationship now because it's just different.
It is different. I agree. It's less autocratic for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
from
I love I love that it makes it harder in some respects,
yeah, yeah,
but it's a better way to grow. And so I think that that's a
absolutely. Leadership team health, leadership team alignment,
yeah.
and then yeah, is everybody I mean, not only is everybody healthy as far as like hitting their numbers and la la la, but are they healthy here? Do they
Yeah.
have the right mindset to be working, or are they experiencing some kind of pain outside of work that they need to go fix first?
Yep. Yep. Exactly. So as far as like working and being a part of your peer groups, like how often do you guys accept new members? What does it look like to be a part of Arizona Growth?
Yeah.
And
So if you and I were first talking and you were ready for next steps,
Mhm.
there is an onboarding process, if you will. And we ask our members for three things, for three commitments. The first one is the time. If you can commit a half day once a month, and we meet on the same day every month, 10 times a year, different days for different groups, right? Then that's the first thing. And if you cannot commit to that, then maybe you ought to rethink joining
yeah,
our community. And I say that really it's reality, because if you cannot be there, then what happens is it impacts everybody else in the room, because they're like, what happened to Gabby?
yeah, exactly.
And then Gabby's expertise isn't there if somebody needs help. So of course goes two ways.
Yeah.
The second commitment is it's the time commitment. It's the willingness to be vulnerable and ask for help, and also to pull from your own experiences and share
Hmm.
ideas. And then the third thing is the financial commitment.
Hmm.
And so the next steps, we sit down and we do a business overview. And the overview is like a deep dive into your business. What's your ownership structure look like? How many people report to you? What's your core values, mission, vision, values? Do you have a strategic plan? What do your financials look like? And we actually have a SWOT slide: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And also talking about trends, what's going on in your own industry. That
Hmm.
way, everybody's got an idea of what you're faced with, right? And then there's an executive profile slide on the individual, the executive.
Hmm.
And so that's part of the onboarding process. We do an assessment, a TTI, a DISC assessment, so that the leader can understand how a lot of executives these days are familiar with some kind of assessment.
Yeah.
There's CIPI, TTI,
Hmm.
and more.
Yeah.
And So the great thing about it is they're familiar with it, and yet we all like to learn more about ourselves. And so
Sure.
on balance, 95% take it again just to see where they're at. And I mean, it's a pretty comprehensive report. It talks about your natural style, and then it talks about your adaptive style if you change some of your behaviors because of your work.
Yes.
And then it discusses how to communicate with you. And then everybody signs a confidentiality agreement. In this way, you can speak freely in the room
Right.
and know that no one's got a dog in your hunt,
Yeah.
and we're all here to help each other.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, I joined, I want to say it's been 2 years, almost 2 years
Yeah.
now. So it's been easy for me to kind of keep up with that level of commitment, and I want to be there. Like I was just on vacation. So and I showed up on while I was on vacation because I was
That was awesome.
because I wanted to see these people, you know,
Yeah.
and just kind of download all of my thoughts and then upload new thoughts and also contribute to other people's businesses. So
So
it's
I'm going to ask you next month, but I'm curious, have you, since you had that time off, have
Mhm.
you had time to process anything new? Has any new ideas come since you've been sort of unplugged?
um it's a good question. I have been writing down things and I'm actually doing kind of like an after action report like next week. My business manager is coming down and because we're all remote, so she's coming in from Albuquerque, and so we're
Ah,
going to sit down and kind of go through all the things that we need to be like renew our strategy
yeah.
and our things. But yeah, the unplugging was super super helpful, and thinking about yeah what the next thing looks like for me
Mhm.
um is definitely on the agenda. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I think that's the thing is like having conversations like this, having someone like you in my life holding me accountable to, you know, setting time aside to make sure that that I'm doing things like that.
Yeah. You definitely need white space.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Yep.
I would say, like, I know I mentioned earlier about the lifelong learners, the peer groups really are a way to stay relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's lonely at the top, it's a way to stay relevant. And it's that way to air your junk. It's not necessarily business therapy, but you certainly can vent, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about anything from, how to help motivate our employees
Mhm.
to dealing with, our other
Partner
counterparts.
buyouts
Yeah, partner
mhm,
buyouts. Yes, that was a big one this last year.
for a
Um,
couple of people.
yeah, and then just dealing with um, how do I increase my sales, or,
Mhm.
how do I decrease some of these costs? How do I build better processes? We have a marketing guy who is great, and he, throws things out occasionally, and then you have some people who are really good with operations as well.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it's amazing the talent in the room. And every now and then I get to say something smart about
Of course you do.
finances. But you can take a problem and then look at it from all kinds of different perspectives, and then
Mhm.
you know, all of us will usually walk away and go, wow, I hadn't thought about it like that,
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
really cool to be in a room with so many smart people. So
That's where the magic happens. I love
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, it's been great for me too. Um, so awesome. Well, I love having this conversation with you. I'm
Thanks
glad
for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad we could finally get it into both
I
of our
know.
calendars. We've been both really busy. So if somebody wants to join a group, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you, Mary?
Oh, I'm easy to find. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm
Okay.
also on ArizonaGrowthAdvisors.com, the website.
Okay.
And I will also give a shout out to a couple of my other fellow advisors, because there's a sales leader group if you've got sales leaders, and there's also a leadership training course that one of my other partners does. And I mean, if you've got first line supervisors who have never been a supervisor, or if you've got some that have some talent and yet you want to develop them further, there I would say come talk to us,
Yeah.
see if it's a fit. And it's not for everybody, but I do feel like there's a lot of great businesses in our community. We've got over 100
Yeah.
companies now, and I mean the dollars are incredible as far as the revenues collectively with
Yeah.
all the businesses. And it's a fantastic group of people who they just want to help you.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree 100%. I've been able to network with a lot of different businesses that I would never have met before, and really has expanded my region to the Phoenix area, which is exactly what I, wanted to do, um, and be more a part of that community as well. So it's been a great opportunity to do that, and I would highly recommend, yeah, anybody who's watching to come and be a part of it.
Yes,
It's
thank
fun.
you.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So, thank you again so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge and just kind of like what peer groups are about. Um, and if you are watching and you would love to, get this type of information on a pretty regular basis, then make sure that you like and subscribe to this video and tune in to all these great professionals that we're bringing on to help really elevate your business and help you thrive and grow. So thank you so much, you all. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.